All right.
Oh, fancy.
Well, welcome to the next episode of Go Bold or Go Home podcast. And we have a special guest returning for the first time this season, Mr. Steven.
You can faintly hear it, but it's there.
Welcome back, Steven. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
He just apparently had so many issues with my power rankings last week. I thought they were pretty good, but he's come back with his own versions, and I think I actually agree with him after how everything turned out this last week. There's a few I will disagree on, but we'll get to those as we get
Well, that's what we're here for, isn't it?
Yes, so let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and we will go through these power rankings that Steven has prepared for us. So let's go ahead.
That's right. I said we needed graphics. What did we bring? Graphics. Also,
all right. Well then, definitely, and anyone that saw that on Monday night, I was dying of laughter. I was like, wait, no, he did it. And yes, it was a good moment. So good picture right there. All right, so the week 3 review. Steven, your team's up first. I'll let you take this matchup. What happened to you guys?
All right, so I'll just walk you through this fancy little graphic we got now. So I decided to just top it off with some nice Comic Sans here. You know, we're very professional, so we only a professional font will do. But let's walk through this week. The final score, Dylan 117, me 99.5. If you notice, there's a big old ambulance right next to AJ Brown, who pulled his hammy in the first quarter. You got to think that those 12-ish points that I'm projected maybe could have done better against Indianapolis. Maybe could have made up the difference. But hey, you know what? His team played well. It was a good win. But we have some talking points here noted by our little graphics. And I'm sure you're wondering what the heck those are.
Yeah, what is the fish? I think I figured everything else out, but the fish is a little confusing.
Perfect segue, Nolan. That's not any fish on the screen. That is a fluke, Nolan.
The most common fish in the sea, actually.
If you go fishing for one, you might just catch one, but those are flukes. And you notice he's got Najee and Chase Claypool there that I've labeled as a fluke performance this week. Not exactly because their points, Najee's at 21. He got 19, yes, 9 receptions in that game because these two were basically the last man standing in that game. So I don't expect them to produce those numbers on a weekly basis without some touchdown help, which you can't really bank on. So I gave them a big old fluke. And yes, I gave my own one a fluke too. There's no way that Browns get 18 points off 9 sacks in a weekly basis. How do you even allow 9 sacks without adjusting your game?
That's what happens. That's the reason David Montgomery, I was really critical of the trade for Dylan with David Montgomery because I'm sorry, Dylan, I said I'd go easy, but I mean, you trade a lot to get a guy that's going to probably get you 6 to 8 points every week. So I agree with the emoji right there. I will say the one, I wish there was an emoji on like the fire emoji next to Mr. Kamara, because he did pretty good because considering the last week was like just rough week 2. And I know that hurt you. And there also should be a poop emoji over by Damian Harris because that was also rough.
Yeah, I didn't know what emoji to put next to Damian Harris. There's a few other ones. There's a cold, there's a poop. The poop is like you just came out and laid an egg that game, right? Better, but the poop one's just funny.
Yeah, but I think, and I think your team will rebound going in. You have a solid team, Stephen. It's just been up and down, just like the Saints are going to be all year round. It's going to just kind of be 1 week it will blow someone out, and 1 week they will be one of the worst teams because you'll have a week like this where you have a 0 on your board. So
Yeah, I'm also running out of room on my training table. I got Jarvis Landry down the IR. Had to
hey,
release James White today on the
I
season
gave you
ending.
Jalen Waddle, and I think he's getting a lot of touches now. So you're welcome.
Sorry, we also added Jacoby Myers in this week. So we got a lot of
Oh.
receptions coming in. Hopefully we can get some yards with those.
All right. Well, let's see what we got next. All right, I'll take this one. Aaron and Ben. Well, I like the cold emoji thrown in. Devin Singletary definitely cold on Ben's team. I was expecting that because I remember we had trade negotiations early in week 1, and I was like, I ain't touching Devin because once it gets back to regular season, he's not going to be doing much. But I think Chase Edmonds is still consistently showing up and playing well. And CD is a baller, as we know. Patrick's a baller, as we know. Kareem Hunt, I can agree with the fluke just because he's not the star running back and he just had a good day, but not every week is he going to be the lead point getter on that team. So I know in our power rankings, we'll get to that later, but I had been higher than you, and that's just because I think his team, you could put a couple flukes around some of those guys because when they all hit, they're inconsistent, but when they hit, it's going to kill. Now, it's not probably helpful right now. His running back rooms hit or miss with Kareem Hunt and Singletary struggling, and I would have put a receiver instead of Singletary in, but that's just me. Because I think that would have helped him if he had like Tim Patrick in there or Christian Kirk in there. That would have probably helped him take the dub. But then looking at Aaron's team, as we see, Mike Davis, Matt Ryan got some cold on there, and that's because, well, Matt Ryan did about projected, but Mike Davis, I mean, he's solid. It's just that the Falcons will always be behind in games, and they will always be throwing in games, and that's not helping his fantasy. And Zeke Elliott, he went off, but we've seen the Cowboys, they actually play to who they're playing, and depending on who they play, he might have like 5 touches or he might have 20. All going to depend week to week. But I think going forward, Aaron's team's starting to pick up steam, and it does have my eye from behind me, and I'm a little nervous about that because we've all seen what his team can do with his receivers, especially just coming out of nowhere, and they could easily put up 20 points each. Oh, I just also noticed the big oof by Kirk Cousins, and yeah.
The one week Kirk Cousins outplays Patrick Mahomes.
I know. No one.
It's a big oof, but like, that would take like the biggest stones to play Kirk Cousins over Patrick Mahomes in any matchup.
Hey, I don't think you'd pick any other quarterback than Patrick Mahomes if you have Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback. He's like the only quarterback I agree drafting early in fantasy.
Unless you got Deshaun Watson last year and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, not this year, and we can get that. I think that's Hayden who drafted him, or Andre. Someone drafted Deshaun, and I don't know what y'all are holding him for, but hey, have fun. All right, Steven, your go here.
All right. Well, this ended up being quite a discrepancy in the score here, quite a beatdown put on by Diggs' team. And I think it goes on with the amount of, it's translated pretty well given the amount of fire we have versus the amount of ice and cool we have on one side. Jake's team is just firing on all cylinders right now. It seems like Austin Eckler just has heated up after a cautious week 1. Tom Brady just out to prove that he's like the NFL vampire and will never die. Mike Williams is really proving, I think he's proving that he's a set and forget kind of player, like a locked in wide receiver 2 rest of the season. D-Hop, yeah, I got a little poop there, but he's got to bounce back. And if you were a Kyle Pitts owner, would you be worried?
So it's hard to judge because the problem is, I think I told someone this in a conversation the other day. I think the Falcons' offensive system is going to hurt the stars like Ridley in Pitts, in Mike Davis, and Matt Ryan, just because they have a porous defense. So the other team is just going to have time of possession on them. Now, they struggled against a Giants team. Let's keep that in mind. A Giants team that has not been impressive this year. I think the other thing with Pitts, he will, as the season goes, he'll start, when they get behind in games by a lot, he'll start getting his touches in. And that's how it's kind of gone, is late in games, he gets a couple catches, gets some yards, and that kind of helps him get some points on the board. But I think there's a couple of tight ends you could, like, I would have gotten Schultz over him. And I remember actually during our draft discussions, Dylan asked me, he's like, hey, how high are you on Pitts? Do you like Pitts? And he kept thinking I was going to draft Pitts instead of Waller early. And I was like, nah, Waller's getting all the targets on this team. So smart.
I was annoyed that Waller fell to you, but that's a different note.
Hey, you know.
I'm a little bit worried about the Atlanta offense. Like you said, it just is mind numbing in a way. It doesn't make any sense. You're always trailing, which should be good for your receivers, but their game plan is to use the journeyman himself, Cordell Patterson, who we saw on Dylan's bench earlier. Why is that man getting all the touches? Why wouldn't you scheme Calvin Ridley or Kyle Pitts more into the game if you're always trailing?
Probably because Mr.
I don't know what I'm doing. I play on Madden Beginner, Ask Madden Playbooks, so I don't know what I'm doing, but somebody that knows what they're doing should be able to answer that question.
No, I think the Falcons, it's an inside job with Dylan. They found out that he spent money on Cordell, and they're just like, hey, we're going to help a brother out. But, yeah, so it will say it is interesting looking at all the fire emojis and looking on the other side and a big oof and some cold.
Yeah, there's a big oof next to Alexander Madison. I don't know if Clint was sleeping for 1 p.m. or something and didn't realize that Dalvin Cook was out for the game. But if Dalvin Cook's out for the game, you don't bench Madison. You just don't. So
no, that's unfortunate. And then, of course, your guy Cup is just stealing Robert Woods' entire target share. So,
yeah, I'm a little surprised on just how unused Robert Woods is. Like, yeah, Cooper Kupp is getting a lot of volume. He's a wide receiver 1 right now, which is great for my team. But even then, there's a lot of volume that still goes to the other receivers, like Van Jefferson. I guess Higbee counts somewhere in there. And you got Sean Jackson breaking the big plays. So at some point, you got to be worried about Robert Woods. I've heard a lot of people say this week that this is like the definitive, is Robert Woods still a thing game coming up here against Arizona.
We'll see what happens for sure. But, you know, when I see all these fire emojis on Jake's team, I don't know about you, but I know I need to get some body armor, because body armor keeps me hydrated when I'm feeling on fire. So, unofficial sponsor of the week, go get yourself some body armors. That's how I recommend right there.
Wow, I didn't throw it in at the beginning. You really caught me by surprise.
Hey, I'm just going to say the Segway game this season has been pretty great so far. I worked really hard on the one last week. I can't even remember what I did, but it was, I thought about it for quite a bit. All right. But thinking things, I don't know what Hayden was thinking, because he almost got upset by James. And I remember actually checking, I think it was after the mid-afternoon games, James was like within a couple points, and they had him as a good chance of possibly with the upset. So, and the sad part for James is he probably just, tweaked a few things, like maybe he started someone instead of Latavius Murray, and if he had maybe one guy do decent.
Yeah, I just got no reaction for James's team.
It's like, rough. It really is.
I got no reaction. All the players are performing just about how you would expect them to. Julio, I guess, was a little bit disappointing last week, but
Julio's been disappointing the whole season.
Players are just kind of performing as you would expect them to, and he's getting the points that you would expect. I don't really have a reaction. Like, as you see, there's like no real
Hmm.
There's no icons over there because I just have no reaction. The team is just doing what it should, and it
Yeah.
almost got Hayden on a poop week. But as you,
You know,
the big old 21.5 fluke you see by Peyton Barber. Yes, I said fluke saves his butt this week.
yes. Definitely looking at Hayden's team, there was he got saved by Peyton's fluke there and being able to get 21 points from a guy that hasn't really been a starting running back in a decade. So that was really helpful for him.
Yeah, some
Tyson
people.
Williams, on the other hand, who he was quick to make sure he got a monopoly on Baltimore running backs at that point. Um, that didn't pay off, but definitely that Broncos defense also helped save him because 17 points, I would have put a fluke there. I mean, I love the Broncos D, but they aren't getting 17 points every week.
Well, it fits the theme of the season, which is overspending fab on free agent running backs. The James Robinson disease. That was a $25 fab below there for Tyson Williams. It looked good for a couple minutes in the first game, and now we're seeing
There's a reason he was
downside.
the fourth running back on the roster and was borderline going to be practice squad until everyone started getting hurt. That's all I'll say about that.
Then you have Dylan's $61 bid on Elijah Mitchell. Jake throwing, I think it was 31 or 41. I forget which one it is at Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, Trevor Hubbard. I thought about it.
Yeah.
I think I put like $5 towards it, and I was like,
I put 12 to replace James White, but that was the max I was spending.
nah, I was like five is fine. I don't need them. I feel fine, and we could get to my team later. But and then Tyreek Hill had a cold week. The whole Chiefs had a cold week, but he'll
Curry
bounce
Hills
back.
had a rather cold season. It's because he's getting schemed out right now. But maybe my new signing, if you believe it, Josh Gordon may help there.
He may. I don't know. We will see. He
I have to hope. I need some.
East
I could use a good wide receiver.
Yeah, we'll see if he
I can
can
trade him
not
away.
be suspended for once. So we'll see what happens there. All
Let's-
right. So we got Andre versus Colton. Interesting. I see the tale of two cities here. Well, what happened?
Shitties.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
walk me through this.
Allen Robinson has been a big disappointment this season, you got to say. And at some point, maybe Matt Nagy will, the doppelganger, is Bill O'Brien just like our Adam Gase inside this man's mind right now? Like just taking his place as a doppelganger while he's on vacation, he's going to come back soon or something? Like, what is going on? But Robinson, a big old 3 deuce there. That hurts his week. Of course, McCaffrey getting hurt is the biggest blow of them all. Marquise Brown with a bad case of the Butterfingers this weekend. And look at that, -8 by the Washington defense.
I did not see that coming at all because I thought Washington would at least keep it like decent. Like I know Buffalo's great and all, but they also don't have a run game. So I was thinking, like, I'm not saying it'd be a field goal game or at any point like, oh, Washington would upset them, but -8, that's pretty rough.
Yeah, he was doomed from the start with a defense that puts up -8 with the quarterback that makes them put up that -8 number playing him. There's no way he would win that game.
One almost thinks, and I mean, again, hey, Dylan, you should be happy. I'm bagging on other teams now. But Deshaun Watson's just sitting on that bench. So Andre is betting that Deshaun either comes back to the Texans, which we all know ain't happening, or he gets traded.
Maybe he's banking on a trade to Miami. I don't know.
I mean, that would be something. Either there or my underdog is the Colts might make a trade at some point because Wentz is. So, all right. Well, then looking at Colton's team, though, Colton's team finally, I mean, Josh Allen is just balling out of his mind. And then Saquon finally got back to Saquon for him. So that seems to have helped him a lot this week.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta imagine what a fun world it is to have a 30-point quarterback sitting on your bench.
And still
Aaron's
be
probably
okay. Yeah.
crying and is probably just crying in his sleep right now. He can't even have a quarterback. It's over 15.
Hey, if you need a quarterback, you got
Yeah,
two right there. You can
yeah.
trade for one, and Colton's looking for some trades. I definitely know that. So, all right, well, let's move on to my matchup. And I gotta say, it was a nice week to have some rebounds, but I agree with the Amari Cooper. That hurt. Um, I did not expect him, like, that first week was great. And that's how I feel about Amari Cooper, is just sneezing and all congested because he gets some great catches, but he's being the main focus and by defense and just locked down. And that's not what I need. I need the targets, I need the yardage, and I need the touchdowns. But DJ Moore, I'm so glad I made that trade before the McCaffrey injury, because now I think he will get a couple more targets each week.
This man is just on a mission to make me look as dumb as possible this season, I think. And it will happen. So congratulations, you got wide receiver 1 now.
I stood by getting him real early. And the Josh Jacobs trade, I was very happy about that too, because all I had to give up was T. Higgins, who's now injured. So I was like, all right, cool.
I mean, I can justify the DJ Moore trade in principle because I'm getting more points for my lineup. But now with AJ Brown hurt, especially, I'm gonna need Russell Wilson to cook like an MVP for me to not regret this the entire season.
Yeah. And I still remember when I traded you and I told you I was what plan you want at quarterback? And I was like, oh, you'll see. You'll see. And I went with the Raiders. Derek Carr, he's an MVP candidate right now. And he's playing really well. So do I think he'll last every week? No. I think I actually already benched him for Joe Burrow because I'm going based on matchups. And if I remember correctly, Joe Burrow is playing who is it? A weak secondary. I do know that.
Yeah.
So I was like,
oh, he's playing Jacksonville.
Yeah. So there you go. That just lost CJ Henderson to Carolina. So I was like, I jumped at that. So I feel good right now about my team. So
yeah. See, I don't have a fluke next to Derek Carr. I don't think his 21 points or his production this season is a fluke per se.
I think he's going to average around 20 points.
It's good slow.
Yeah. He'll average around 20 points, especially with Jacobs coming back. And I think his big thing is he's not a high ceiling, but he's got a high floor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, definitely looking over at, Hines. I wish I had started him.
No way of knowing.
Yeah, no way of knowing.
But I did guys for Naheem Hines right now.
I did decide to keep him on my bench because I kept telling people, I'm like, they just signed him to a massive contract for RB2 and
Mac is gone now.
Yeah, Mac is gone. So now looking over at John's team, I got helped by his team having a little rough week, especially Miles Sanders.
Yeah, they were my just general poop team for the week, like the most underperforming team. Like Andre got the lowest points, and then James was below that, but Andre's got injuries. James's team, and then so John's team has had to be the most disappointing team of the week.
Yes, I mean, I never liked Herbst, but that was more of a me thing. But outside of that, Joe Mixon had a down week. Nick Chubb had all his points stolen by Hunt. And other than DK Metcalf, everyone was way below their projected points. So it was a little tough for him this week. I do think a lot of them will bounce back. So that's why I agreed on all of them getting the poop emojis.
But yeah, you'll see that in my rankings. I'm not sleeping on this team. I know Dylan is not a particular fan of John's team, but I like his team, assuming we don't have any injuries or weird changes that's going to cause that, because John's got a history to sleep a little bit on the free agents. He doesn't make a lot of moves.
He saves the traps.
This is his team for better or for worse here. But for now, I think it's for better.
for better. I agree, and he's got a good receiver on the bench there, Brandon Cooks. So, all right, well, let's look at and talk about your power rankings because there's some interesting things happening over here.
The return of the Comic Sans. We love it.
All right, so let's go ahead and start at the let's start at the bottom and let's see if I have. Can I minimize this? I think I can. There we go. Because for James' team, I do have a fun little thing. So while you talk about that, I'll just play the bit.
Oh, well, see, for James's team, I got those 4 dudes next to his team there because his team is dead. They are at the bottom. They will more than likely be occupying the 12th spot for the entire season.
For the entire season at the 12th spot.
I think so.
All right.
I really think I don't want to be too mean, but I think he, at this point, is hoping one of those handcuff running backs comes into play like right at the end of the season, so he just saves himself from having to lose the toilet bowl on the playoff points. Kind of like how Colton did it last year.
See, that would be interesting if that happened. I also think James will get a win this season. He will not go.
Yeah, he will. He'll get someone on a bye week or something where he'll get you like how you had Jones and
and I'll say James
game last year.
James, don't give up if you're listening. Don't, because look at Dylan. He's moved up. He's impressed for last year. You just kind of, these seasons is tank season. Yes. Look at Colton. Colton went team tank, got his draft picks, and now he's number 2 in our league. So according to Steven and according to me, but he's also number 1 according to ESPN standings, but we'll see how that goes. Now, tell me about number 11, because this is where we have our first big disagreement.
See, I'm not high on his team. The league is pretty competitive outside of first, I feel pretty confident about the first 3 and the last 1, and then everything else from there can kind of intermingle. But I'm not as confident in Ben's team as you are, because I don't think his running backs are going to produce like that on a weekly basis. And Sutton's going to be kind of hit or miss depending on what Fant does or when Judy comes back. He's kind of relying on his one guy that's going to for sure that can win you a week on his own is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So that's why I got him down there.
I mean, the thing is, I really think his running backs, though, when they do hit, they will go off. Like they did, we've seen before. They get hit and they hit well. And that's why he has a good record so far at the beginning of the season. I agree it's not going to be consistent, but that's why I'm high on the team, because you don't have to be consistent. You just have to win at the right time. And with Patrick Mahomes providing a consistent amount of points, I think I'm high on him. And keep in mind, I'm high on him as a top 5 team. That's not saying a lot in a sense, but I think it's like a B+ team, B-. It's solid. And I'm also counting in me projecting how things are going to build. So
I think he can easily slide from 11 to 7-ish. I think he can maybe, especially if that start he had, he can maybe sneak I think he can potentially hold on and sneak in the playoffs, but I don't think that his bench is deep enough to make that kind of a push. And he's going to be
I don't know. I'm
week 1, week 2 Gronk, maybe, but I'm not as high as you are.
I will defend it. I believe it's a possibility he could get that playoff spot. So now moving on to we got High Tide Heroes, Clint. So you have him just in there at 10. I agree with that. I think that's pretty accurate just based on how the season's gone. It's kind of been a little bit of a letdown, not 100%. I think Clinton and I tied week 1, and that was a little surprising to everybody because we had 2 ties. but I think his team has a few holes that needs to be filled, definitely.
Yeah, I think he does have some holes on his bench. His bench isn't coming in with enough points for me, but he's also got a lot of ground to make up after a 2-1 start, which
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't factor into a squad power rankings. It's not the standings, but he's got a lot. There's a lot of room that has to be made up from that, and that's going to go into account for his 10 spot, which I think you can argue that Ben should maybe go above him. And you probably are a fan of that one, but
see, I'll say this. When I look
it.
at my power rankings, I go, if they played each other today, who would I bet the win? Now, we've also seen that my poll pickings in the group has not been that great. Granted, 2 of them were ties and I had nothing to do with, and injuries and stuff like that. Because I think Andre would have won. I voted him to win, and then McCaffrey got demolished. So be like that. Now, Dylan, I am excited about this. I see the up arrow. I see them ranked in the top 10. Dylan breaking through. This is good improvement. I told him I think he'll be one of the top improved teams. I think Colton has surprised everyone and is the most improved team from last year. But Dylan, you're coming up there, right?
Yeah, it's a big jump this week for him. I only have him at 9 because I'm not a huge, like, he's got what separates him in my mind and the 12 to 10s to the teams that he's above is his depth is better than most of those teams, but his lineup doesn't score enough points without huge flukish kind of games for me.
Yeah,
and that's why I got him lower.
The only thing I have on Dylan's team is, Dylan, if you're listening, I think you need to get a good trade analyzer to use. Like, not pay for one. There's some free ones that are really helpful when they do draft picks and stuff and all that jazz. Because I feel like sometimes those trades end up looking like this. Yeah. So
you have to use your imagination a little bit there, but
yeah. I mean, by looks, use your hearing and imagination, because I ain't gonna pull up video clips. We ain't that budgeted yet, unless you guys want to go buy body armor.
Oh my god.
That's too.
I think the trade for Montgomery was good value. He only gave up a second and a fourth.
I think I'm a stickler on picks. I really am. Like,
I'm not a big pick trading guy.
I did trade my first last year, and then I ended up getting 2 first because I traded away people to get first, which I'm right now, just so everyone's aware, I am in the market for draft picks because I do like trading off people for picks. It's just what I do. Even when I'm like a top team, I just like to get rid of people, because if I see no point in keeping them past the season, I'm like, yeah, get rid of them and don't need them. So, but moving on, let's see. So Hayden's team, we have the down arrow. So you have them dropping.
Yep, I got them trending the wrong direction.
And not just because he had a rough week against James, but just you see that this is a bad sign in the future.
Depth concerns.
Ooh.
Specifically at running back is looking bad. But why I still have him above Dylan is he still has guys like Tyreek Hill and Dalvin Cook that can score 30 to 40 points a week.
Yeah. See, this is the most fun week. So after week 4, I think is when all the big trades will start seeing pop up.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be
if someone knows they aren't going to make playoffs and will trade their entire team away.
They're going to, everyone will have a good idea of where their team is going to be. Now, moving past Hayden, we got Andre. I think he just had an off week, so I agree with him being in the middle pack there, especially around 7. I could see him a little higher, but he did have a rough week, so hopefully his team does bounce back. And then without McCaffrey next week and a half, I know that'll be a little hard on him.
Yeah, I think that one hurts. He
Mhm.
did not have the depth at all to be ready for that.
No, and it'll hurt him definitely.
He's already playing Trey Sermon this week, so
Trey Sermon, he got 10 points, and maybe
he still got Lamar.
yeah, he'll
Kittle's
get
still a good
points. It's
player.
just he won't be able to go off. I don't think
He's
he's going to
got a
be
good
a
enough
toucher.
team to contend to stay alive while McCaffrey's hurt, and then once he
Mhm.
comes back, he'll be right back up there. So maybe he can
Yeah.
kind of move his way back up there. But for now, I got him rooted at 7.
All right, Steven, you got yourself over at 6, just dead middle. All
Yeah,
right.
it feels a little high, but I think I've got the number one receiver in the game right now.
I feel
DeAndre,
like we've had this
My Swift
discussion.
marriage is he's now the running back 3.
And for everyone listening, I tell Steven all the time, his team will go as long as Cup goes. If Cup has an off week, his team is trash. But while Cup is balling out, I agree, he's middle of the pack while his team balls, or why Cup is balling out. So because that 30 points a week is just amazing. Now, moving up over here. So we got John's team. So John, 5th, he put him above you, but you also said that he had one of the most disappointing weeks. So that's interesting.
Well, the whole season is in 1 week, no.
Yes, but this is the current power weight rankings, and I expect a trending down. I mean, maybe that's me, but
Yeah, I had him at 4 last week, so he did move slightly.
oh,
Oh, I know, big move, but no, I'm still pretty high on most of his players, and he has good depth if he's going to use it. Like Brandon Cooks has been pretty reliable this year. He's
yeah,
got, he saw a staple of 3 good running backs that he can rely on any
okay.
given week. So I think he's got the depth to get some of those week 9, 10 games when you start getting people on bye and you're playing like AJ Dillon in your flex because everybody else is injured.
Interesting. I definitely think it'll be interesting to watch going forward. Now, moving on, we got Aaron over here, number 4. So we got our top 4, which are basically your main championship contenders usually. So Aaron over there sneaking in on 4. I had him much lower last week. I know he beat Ben, and I had Ben higher. But I also think Ben just had a rough week personally. But and then Aaron's team just decided to go off. But I also was looking at the records of previous matches too, in that sense. But hey, I agree he deserves to be in the top 6 because his team actually rebounded really well this week.
And you see, he got a quarterback this week.
Yes.
So now I think he's really going to be in. Now there's really kind of a definite top 4 with him in there. If he could go out and get a good running back, I think he might start pushing you and Colton.
I don't know. Aaron needs to be trading though. I don't. If I remember correctly, he doesn't really do many trades. He just kind of rides his team.
We'll see. Maybe he's got something cooking.
Yep. But all right, got Jake top 3. I agree with that. Jake's team has been really impressive this season. I think is trending up. It's hard to beat his team when you go head to head. You have to score at least 110 points, I think, if you're going to feel comfortable beating him.
Yeah, it's a Tom Brady factor. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
but even his players are working out too now. So he's a tough team to play on any week. I don't like it.
He hit on a lot of guys that were kind of like they had a high ceiling, and he hit on a lot of them. So good job. Good draft right there. Now, Colton had an amazing draft because this team went from like Team Tank to Quan Solo, and they are. I'm nervous this week. This week, I know it has been projected like well, but this will be a clash of titans, and I am nervous about this matchup because all my guys have to show up. I can't have like an off week by one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So but I definitely agree with your top 2. I hate putting myself on top, but
you don't want to say your first because you don't want to jinx yourself.
Hey, I'm just gonna say like master of a trades because I'm not afraid to make trades. That's all I'm going to say. Everyone else needs to, learn
It's
that
afraid
lesson.
to be number one, the power rankings.
Yeah, I was making trades after week 1. I'm like, let's go, don't care. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm interested to see the results of this week.
You know what? Next week we need to add a free agency review slide because some people were doing some funky things this week.
Cough, cough, looking at you, Dylan.
Yeah. Like the $1 for Dawson Knox, the drop. I was like, what? And then
We'll have to look at
Andre
that.
Payne,
That's
$16 for
interesting.
Marlon Mack. I was like, yeah, Marlon Mack's a sneaky but then I saw it was $16 and I was like, bruh.
But I'll
That's
just say
crazy.
this. When I look at my team, my initial reaction is,
Hey, that's pretty good.
Oh, I heard that one.
yeah. So I'm just going to live with that. And
I thought you were gonna say, "Hey, it's Corona time," which also could make sense. No.
it's Corona time. Oh yeah, dude, you gotta love.
Put your feet up. It's like that.
All right, till next week, guys. We'll catch you later.